Kev back again, and today we're going to talk about three great arcade machines from the golden era of the arcades: Asteroids, Missile Command and Pong. Now I'm going to use this Atari anniversary on the PS1, the Anniversary Edition Redux, because I thought this was pretty good. I mean, you can pick this up for about £5 or £6, I think, but I thought it did some really good sort of versions of the actual games we're going to talk about. The other thing I liked is in the actual booklet itself, if you actually went to a game, obviously you'd want to go to the game to have a little read up and stuff, it would actually give you a recap of things that happened that year. So for instance, if you went to, I don't know, Asteroids, you'd go to Asteroids and it'd give you retro recap, arcade debut 1979, and it'd give you a few facts from that year, which I thought was really nice. So you could just flick around, have a little read and find out things that are happening. But yeah, I thought this is pretty good. This is what we're going to use, so let's get it loaded and we'll have a look at these three games.
Right, the first one I loaded was Asteroids, and the one good thing about this anniversary edition on the PS1 from Atari is you get some good display options, as in I was able to change and get rid of the cabinet art. I preferred to play it without the cabinet art around the screen. And also there's a display quality option where you can choose low, high or medium. Now when I went for low, it actually looked really good. It actually looked more like it would have done in the arcade, so I was quite pleased that the game gave me these options. Now, Asteroids is another classic for me. It came out when I was 10 years old in 1979 by Atari. I always like to mention the makers of these games because sometimes we talk about games, we don't mention the people who created it. But it was made by Lyle Rains and Ed Logg, and it was obviously a multi-directional game, and it used the old vector graphics. Classic stuff. Now, as you can see, I was one of those players. I didn't stay in the centre. I used to fly around a bit. I used to love using the old thrusters because it was really, really well done. When you use the thrusters but you stopped using them, if you know what I mean, the ship would carry on in that direction. You'd have to spin the ship round again. Well, not too well that time. But you had to spin it back round again and then start the thrusters to slow you down and then put you in the other direction. I used to do that a lot, and that was the way I used to play Asteroids. The old Asteroids did pretty well for Atari, shifting up to 50,000 uprights and 9,000 cocktail cabinets. Now those old enough out there who remember the cocktail cabinets, they were great. You'd go into a pub or a bar, they'd be in the corner and you'd have a stall either side and you could have your drink, put your pint on the side. It was great stuff, great memories. Video games, Asteroids got progressively harder. Obviously the asteroids move quite slowly when they're big, but when you shot them into smaller pieces they'd move more quickly. And obviously you had the flying saucers as well. Now the large flying saucer, he was quite slow and he wasn't too much of a problem, but the little small one that came on just there, now they can be a little bit more deadly. I was a bit lucky there when I shot him, but the little small saucers, they got better and better as you survived. They got quicker and they got really accurate with their weapons to shoot you. You used to get tough with those around. I say, it was released in 1979 for music lovers out there. The best-selling single in the UK that year was Bright Eyes by Art Garfunkel, and the USA it was My Sharona by The Knack. Love that song. Oh, Command. God, I used to love this game. I used to love this game so much. It was made in 1980 and it was released by Atari, and they licensed it to Sega for Japan. It was made by a guy called Dave Thurer who made Tempest. Remember, when you were in the arcade, you actually made use of the tracking ball, which was a ball on the old cabinet itself. You used to spin it around to move the crosshairs around, and it was really, really, really responsive. Now, the idea of the game is you had to protect the 6 cities from intercontinental ballistic missiles. It was really interesting to read about this game because apparently it was heavily influenced by the Cold War, which was going on at the time. You know, the massive build-up of nuclear weapons between the East and the West. And even the 6 cities in this game were representative of 6 cities in real life. Now they were Eureka, San Francisco, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles and San Diego. You know, I thought that was remarkable when I heard that. Missile Command, I used to really enjoy playing this game. I know I say that about a lot of games, but then I really do love gaming. But it was a really, really quite addictive game to play, and the old satellites went across the sky, as you can see there. They started to fire missiles at you as well, and then you'd eventually get aeroplanes. But as you got on further into the game, it got really quick and it sort of got to panic stations, and if those ballistic missiles hit your weapon silos, then you would have no more missiles. You had 3 weapon silos, but you didn't want them getting blown up because then you would run out of missiles and then everything would end very quickly. But it was a really exciting game to play at the time, and it was really fast, and I used to love playing Missile Command. Now, playing this on the PS1 today, I was actually reasonably pleased with myself. I was actually doing okay, but I tell you what, it's a big disadvantage not having the tracking ball. Now, I went to an arcade about 6 months ago where they had an original Missile Command, and playing with the tracking ball was brilliant. You was able to move the crosshairs so quickly you could fly it across the screen trying to fire out your missiles, and it was so much better. But you know what, I was quite pleased with what I did today playing out on the old PS1. Music lovers out there, the #1 selling single in the UK that year was Don't Stand So Close to Me by The Police, and in America it was Call Me by Blondie in 1980, a good year for music. Now to Pong. Now you may think, oh, why's he included Pong? It's hardly a great game, as in considering how good a game like Asteroids or Missile Command is. But you know, the reason I've included it is it had great significance. You know, made way back in 1972, and it was made by a guy called Alan Alcorn, who was working for Atari. Now, when Alan was taken on by Atari, they just gave him a training exercise to do just to see how good he was, and they asked him to make a machine. They never thought that would come to be something that they could manufacture. But when Alan had finished making it, they were really, really surprised. So they thought, yeah, we can manufacture this, and that's exactly what they did. The way the story goes, apparently Atari wanted to check out whether people would actually want to play this game. So there was a bar close to where they were making them called Andy Cap's Tavern, and they took a Pong cabinet down there, left it in there to see if people would play it. And of course, people did play it. Now, apparently, after about a week or so of the cabinet being in there, the guys who owned the bar called up the lads at Atari and said, you know what, there's a problem with the machine, something's not right. So they came down to have a look, and it was a great problem. The problem was it was so full of quarters that it affected the way the machine was operating, and that was great news to those lads at Atari, I can tell you. Pong, you can't really understate the significance of a game like Pong. You know, these guys making games like this in the early 70s, everything really kicked on from them. And I remember about 1976, maybe 1977, my brother came home and he had a little Binatone console, and it had about 7 or 8 variations of the Pong game. So, you know, Pong had sort of started the home invasion of consoles coming into your bedroom and into your living rooms at home. You know, it was amazing. We have a lot to thank those guys who made machines like Pong. 1972, what were the best-selling songs that year in the US and in the UK? Well, in the UK it was Amazing Grace by the military band Royal Scots Dragoon Guards, and in the USA it was The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face, Roberta Flack. Now that is going back a bit, I was only 3 years old. Anyway, I hope you liked today's video. I thought it was quite interesting looking back at those really old arcade games. Take care of yourself, everybody.